Now we want to take our cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and instead of making bitmap plates out of them, we want to make halftones out of them. You'll remember this image that I showed where we have our pixel-based image made of thousands of colors broken down into a pixel-based series of 4 colors. Next, we want to move to halftone series of 4 colors. We've already converted the image under image mode to CMYK color. And in channels, we're again going to select each channel and make it a separate file. So I'm on the cyan channel. We'll turn these off. So I'm just looking at cyan. I want to select all of it. So select all. I want to copy it. Go to Edit, Copy. We want to make a new file. So File, New. Say OK. And we want to go to Edit, Paste. So there's our cyan again as a grayscale image. I want to move from grayscale to bitmap. But instead of making it a diffusion dither pixel-based image, I now want to make it a halftone image. So I want to raise the resolution to 800 pixels per inch. And now I want to decide my numbers. Now, angle or degree for each of my lines per inch is really important here. The reason why it's important is that if we don't change the angle and we print 4 halftone plates on top of one another, they can create an additional pattern called a moiré. A moiré pattern is when you get 2 patterns that conflict with one another. Let me show you an example. So anytime 2 patterns lay on top of one another, we can create a third pattern. Because we're using 4 plates, it means we have to have very specific angles. When we're printing a halftone as just a single stencil, it doesn't matter too much. But when we're printing more than one, we need to make sure our angles don't conflict with one another to create a moiré. Here are one set of angles that you can use for each of your plates. Typically, yellow is either 90 or 0 in any of the combinations. Generally because we can see that pattern really easily, lines going horizontally or vertically, even with a single stencil, that's easy to see. So we make that vertical or horizontal on yellow because the yellow is the hardest to see, right, color-wise. So it looks like they've got cyan at 15, magenta at 75, yellow at 90, and then black at our kind of standard 45-degree angle. In this screen, I want to, again, have my frequency 30 lines per inch or under. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 20. For our cyan plate, we want this at 15 degrees. And this time I'm actually going to choose an ellipse. And we'll say OK. There's our cyan plate. Next, I want to select my yellow or my magenta channel. Select all of that, copy it. We'll make a new file, and then we'll paste that. We want to make it into a halftone. And again, we need the right angle. So for magenta, we want 75 degrees. So I'll plug in 75 here at an ellipse. You could choose different shapes for each one. You could choose different frequencies for each one. Typically, I leave those the same, but you feel free to experiment. There's our magenta. At this point, I would just save each stencil individually. Do a file save as for each file. This is your cyan file. This is your magenta file, and so on. I'm going to simulate what these look like in color by walking them up the chain from bitmap to grayscale and from grayscale to color. And I'm going to label this one so we don't forget this is our cyan. And now I'll do the same to our magenta. Make it grayscale, and we'll make it color. And I'm going to label this one magenta. Let's go back to our cyan. I'm going to select the black, and I'm going to edit fill with 100% cyan. Say OK. So that's what our halftone would look like when we go to print it with our cyan transparent ink. Now let's do our magenta. Select the black. We'll go to edit fill. We'll choose color, and I want this to be 100% magenta, 0% cyan, yellow, and black. There we go. Okay, now I'll select all of this. I'll copy it. We'll take it over to here, and I'll paste it in a new layer. This is obviously magenta, but I'll label it anyway. And now if we change our blending mode to multiply, again, you can see what those two look like when they're printed on top of one another. Again, this is just a simulation of what it would look like if you print these two layers. Simply making each stencil a halftone and leaving it black and then printing it out is exactly what you need to do. Here again was our bitmap version that we did versus our halftone version. Let's go ahead and complete our halftone version. Go back to channels. I'm going to select the yellow. We'll copy all of that. We'll make it a new file. We'll paste it. Make it a halftone by going to bitmap mode. And now our angle for yellow, I believe, was 90 degrees. Now I'll walk it back up the image mode chain, bitmap to grayscale, and from grayscale to RGB, and in layers, we'll label that yellow. I'll select the black, and we'll fill it with 100% yellow. Ah, it's pretty close. There's our yellow. Okay. Let's select all of it, copy that, bring it over to this, paste it, and now set it to multiply mode. Okay, and then lastly, we'll do our black channel. Select all of it, copy it, make a new file, paste it. We'll make it a halftone through bitmap mode. And this should be 45 degrees. And then grayscale and color. Select all of it, copy it, paste it, and multiply mode. So here is our halftone image, printed in cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Again, this is just a simulation. Simulation of what it would look like when it's printed. But you can see our overlapping is creating our greens, our violets, our oranges, and The halftone itself is creating tints. If we compare this to our bitmap version, bitmap 4-color separation, halftone 4-color separation.